So we are now on to the sixth video of my collection reveal series. It's been quite a while since I've done a collection reveal video, and I've added quite a few cards to my collection, a lot of big name and a lot of valuable cards throughout the months, so I felt like this is a good time to do it. And starting off at number 10, we are going to have a manga Ryuran from Magic Ruler, PSA 10 First Edition. And this is kind of the black sheep of the Toon cards, I guess you would say, from the Magic Ruler series, because it did keep the manga name instead of it being changed over to Toon. For whatever reason, Upper Deck decided not to change this card's name to Toon Ryuran, like the other Toon monsters, and kept the original manga name. So it was a little interesting for that. And then this also is something I wanted to get into, is that I wanted to do more is collect graded rare cards. I've got a few of them, like this one, and then a first edition Dark Elf from LOB, or not LOB, MRD as well. But I also just wanted to kind of collect more graded rare cards, because there are quite a few good rare cards within the old Yu-Gi-Oh sets. Good for playing, and then also just good with like their effects or just interesting artworks. And then moving on to number 9, they have a Japanese Pokemon card. This is the Aerodactyl from the Vending Series 2. And this is just a really great artwork. The Vending Series cards aren't terribly difficult to find. There are a lot of them out there, but typically they'll be in pretty poor condition because of the way they were acquired through vending machines, and then also being popped out of like sheets. So a lot of times you can get damage on these corners and whatnot from people popping them out of a sheet to get the card. But this is just a really great Aerodactyl artwork, and a lot of these Vending Series cards have really great artworks if you compare them to like Pokemon base set. A lot of the artworks just within the common cards are way better in these Vending Series cards than that they are within the first set of the base set Pokemon cards. And now moving on to number 8. This isn't too terribly valuable of a card, but it is a newer Yu-Gi-Oh card, from 2015. So it's not one of those old vintage Yu-Gi-Oh cards that you see most people collecting. And it is the Stardust Spark Dragon, PSA 10. And this is just a super rare, but this is what this was a variant of the Stardust Dragon, the famous Synchro monster. And pretty much all of the 5D dragons got variation cards printed of them that were kind of like upgradeds, I guess you could call them, to an extent, that made them slightly better, slightly more playable within the Yu-Gi-Oh meta. So you're talking about like Red Skull Archfiend Dragon that got the Scarlet Red Skull Archfiend Dragon, and then Black Rose Dragon, Powerful Dragon. All of those cards really got like variations of them where they're pretty much the same monster but with just a different effect. And so once the Yu-Gi-Oh meta evolved and more cards came into play, this was the more playable Stardust Dragon compared to the original Stardust Dragon. And I actually used this in a few of the decks too. It's no longer really playable, I would say. I hardly ever see this card ever, so I wouldn't say that this is a playable card anymore, but it used to be. And now at number 7, we have a vintage Yu-Gi-Oh card. Ancient Sanctuary, End of Anubis, First Edition, Secret Rare, PSA 10. This was never too much used of a card. It's got an interesting effect, but never really used all that much. The artwork is quite amazing on it. It's got a very nice artwork to it, but never really saw too much of play, and was never really a valuable card. Even now in PSA 10 edition, this card only goes maybe maximum of $100 to $120, and $120 is really pushing it for this card. So not too terribly valuable, but for those people that will collect the vintage Yu-Gi-Oh sets, it's part of cards that you need for the secret rares. And now at number 6, we have 2 cards actually. The PCY promos. We have the Prismatic Rare Thousand Knives as PSA 10, and also the Dark Magician with the Prismatic Foil, also in PSA 10, from 2003 promo card. And really, these just go really well together, I think. I actually quite like this artwork for the Dark Magician. I find it pretty interesting because you can see his full body, unlike the LOB version. And then the SDK or SDY version, the original anime artwork, I just never really liked that artwork too much. So this one I thought was pretty unique and pretty interesting artwork for the Dark Magician. And then Thousand Knives, obviously a card that was seen in the anime a whole bunch, but not like a card that you'd actually ever play. But still quite cool to have as to go along with your Dark Magician here. And then at number 5, we have another Japanese card, but this time is a Japanese Yu-Gi-Oh card, the Archfiend of Guilford. That is an ultimate rare, and it has a very nice pop to it, this card. The ultimate rare foiling really goes well with the dark coloring of the monster card, and it really pops well on this card. Obviously, this isn't the most valuable of the Archfiend Guilford cards. The Retro Pack 2, I believe, was what Archfiend Guilford, the secret rare from Retro Pack 2. That's probably going to be your top dollar, the card, Archfiend of Guilford card that you want the most. But this is still a quite very good looking card and a good card to add to any collection. And now that we're breaking into the top 4, we're going to start getting into the heavy hitters. And at number 4, we have this Cigar Era First Edition PSA 8 Hitmonlee. I just very recently bought this card. I had been watching this card for probably over a year now to kind of wait for it to drop to the price where I wanted it to and to buy it. And so it dropped down to $300, and then I decided to finally pull the trigger on buying this card. And obviously you can see this huge ink smear on the card is what makes this card so valuable. There's a very limited printing of these cards, but what's also interesting is that this ink smear can actually vary in size a lot. So on this card, it's actually one of the larger ink smears that you'll see for this error card. A lot of times the smear will only be within like this text box or so, and it'll be much smaller. If it goes up into the hollow foil, it's usually considered quite large, and then being that this card almost goes all the way up to the Pokemon artwork itself, the Hitmonlee's foot, this is quite a large ink smear. And then I've seen others where it's almost up to the name up here for the Hitmonlee, where it'll stretch almost the entire length of the card. But yeah, this is quite a good smear, I would guess you would call it. Very unique, and adds to the value of the card, in my personal opinion, regardless of the lower 8 grade. Usually these cards grade as 9s, but I personally would rather have the lower grade of an 8 and have a much larger ink smear than have a small ink smear and get the grade of a 9. And then at number 8, we've got another Pokemon card here, and this is the pre-release Clefable Holo from Jungle Set. And this is the rarest pre-release card from the old Wizards of the Coast sets. And that's not counting the pre-release Raichu, which it wasn't actually an official release card. There's a whole other spiel that you can get into on that, where I'm sure people will argue with me on that. But the pre-release Raichu was never an official release card and can't be really authenticated by PSA, and PSA won't authenticate it. In fact, most pre-release Raichus you see will probably be fake cards. So I'm going to consider this, the Clefable card, the rarest pre-release. And I spent about $300 on this card. But yeah, this is part of the getting the whole Jungle Set, I would say. Even though it's not the first edition, usually when you collect the Wizards of the Coast sets, you collect the pre-release card as well. So I have the entire Jungle Set in first edition PSA 8, and now I have, well, the holos anyway, and then now I also have the holo pre-release Clefable in PSA 8, and this was by far the most expensive out of all of them. And then at number 2, we have another Pokemon card, and it is the first edition base set Venusaur. So recently I bought quite a few of the first edition PSA 8 holos that I needed from base set, and now I'm pretty much down to I think only 3 or 4 more that I need. Obviously the Charizard's the most expensive one that I still need to add to the collection. But yeah, it's getting quite close to being a completed set. Just not counting that Charizard, that's going to be a huge hurting on the bank account when I do end up deciding to get that card. And then at number 1, we have a first edition LOB PSA 10 Monster Reborn. and this is the card with the wavy hollow foil on it. It's kind of hard to see the hollow foil with the lighting and the sleeve over the card, but you can also tell because of the ultra rare lettering on the card being very low on the text box. Typically that's a dead giveaway if you do see that lowered title or the lower name of the card on the ultra rares to signify that it is a wavy foil printing for the LOB set. So yeah, I was extremely happy to add this card to my collection. Monster Reborn is just such a hugely iconic card. It's one of the cards that I really kind of associate just with Yu-Gi-Oh! In general, because of how much it was used in the anime, and because of how much it's just a powerhouse card. I remember using the starter deck Yugi and starter deck Kaiba decks when I first got them, and Monster Reborn just always felt like a game changer whenever you used that card. So it's just hugely iconic, one of my favorite cards, and incredibly happy to be able to add this to my collection. So that'll do it for this edition of Collection Reveal. My Instagram and eBay information and links are down in the description below. And as always, thank you for watching.